So welcome back to another episode of the Sino-American Lens. Today it's November 9th, and we're going to be talking about what's next after Trump has been elected president. I'm once again back with William, and yeah, we'll be discussing basically what's next for Trump, what's next for the country, and how this might affect me. And first of all, now that Trump's won, I think the main things to see is that, well, he's obviously president, but he also has control of the Senate. Uh, Probably will have House by end of the week, maybe a week after that, and he has six Supreme justices that basically will go to hell and back for him. With this, I think the power he could induce among America or like around America, uh, and that like, the amount of policy that he can state is really going to be something that we've never really seen from him. Because 2016, of course, members of Congress, they're limited some of his ideas for better or for worse, and he really wasn't able to fully show what he wanted to do. And from that, I think he learned a lot. And now that he knows that like, if he had another chance, what he would do differently. And now that he has the second chance, I think he'll be much more proactive and much more ready to inflict. So I think the first thing to talk about is the fact that he has so much power now, and he basically doesn't have to worry about basically. So I think the first thing to talk about is who Trump has appointed as officials. Like especially for courts, he's gained more traction for courts, for Congress, and he's appointed much more uh, officials as his advisors, and they're really going to be like they're really going to be hard on what he does. I think they'll very much support his ideas more instead of like for example in 2016, a lot of his officials he wasn't able to fire them. They were on this like list basically where they were career employees that you just couldn't fire. With the addition of the Senate, the court, and the representatives, I think he's able to get what he wants a lot more, and he's able to replace some of these people that he initially wasn't able to fire with people that have the same views and perspectives as he does, and he'll be able to push his agenda much further than he. I think another thing is immigration. For immigration, I think you can clearly tell that immigration was a centerpiece of his platform, and his entire idea was immigration will be a lot better now that he's president compared to Biden and Harris administration, and it'll basically be extremely hard on immigration. And I think that's what he's always said, right? He's always been very hard on immigration. He's always said that because of immigration that he would entirely. Wait, do I keep going or do I have to include?
If you want to just do like a solo episode, that's okay too. Or you can include me.
Like, how would I include you? Oh, yeah,
Um,
can I restart then?
yeah, you can restart.
Because like, it feels like I'm just like talking without purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And do you like ask questions or like can I ask you? I don't know.
You can just ask me like, what do I think, or have you heard about, or things like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. So welcome back to another episode of the Sino-American Lens, where today we'll be talking about what's next after Trump has won. I'm once again joined by my mentor William, and today we'll be discussing the newfound power that Trump has and maybe how America could look very different in a couple of years. We'll talk about certain policies he's previously stated and how he'll probably further these agendas and how he's surrounding himself with people that are able to further these agendas. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay,
Okay.
so sorry.
No, yeah, it's good to see you again. I'm excited to have this conversation with Austin.
So I think the first thing to talk about, the most thing that's been on the news a lot lately is what do you think about like the things that like the guardrails basically that have held Trump back? Like obviously that 2016, much of the Congress, much of the court were well, they were still on Trump's side. There was a lot of people that were able to restrict Trump's decisions and stuff. What do you think now that court has changed, Congress has changed? What do you think is gonna happen?
Um, well, with the guardrail thing, I've heard that a lot on the news, and that's also been like a big concern with like a lot of the media reporting on it. And personally, like I feel like the whole guardrail conversation is something that revolves around like kind of like a worst case scenario type. It's as if like Trump was going to make a lot of really bad decisions without the guardrails. And if that's true, then this time without the guardrails, that's really. But at the same time, Trump is just such like a you never know really what you're going to get with him, and he says a lot of things, but he does things, but then what he actually does is often somewhat different from what he says, but also he also does some of the things that he says. Um, but yeah, if he was going to do everything he said the way he said he's going to do it, not having guardrails, pretty concerning. But it's not something that's really fun to think, because there's really nothing I can do, right? But it like I saw on the news that Trump appointed his chief of staff already,
Mhm.
and I forget her name, but she was also his campaign manager. And that's also kind of conflicting for me. Not the fact that she was his campaign manager, but like the media's reporting on him has been or on her has been kind of conflict in my mind, because at the same time there's this guardrail conversation, and then I've heard some outlets say that this person was the one who really started saying like let Trump be Trump as his, and then that led to like a pretty successful campaign. But at the same time, I also hear other outlets saying that even though she had this "Let Trump be Trump" slogan, she still did a good job at reining him in. It's like, so in some sense, like maybe he still has some guardrails. Like people say he's as if he's completely without guardrails. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
want
think.
to.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, I just love to hear. I have some more thoughts about it, but I'd love to hear a little bit more. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts about it before I talk more.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree with you here. I think the narrative that he has no guardrails, no restraints is a bit extreme, probably due to like media and stuff. I think it's obviously that a lot of his opponents and like peers he had are have been shriveled down. Like in 2016, he was said basically he was gonna convict his some of his opponents basically, and that's of course very against democracy. I think 2024, I think like we've said before, his ideologies and his ideologies and his campaign is much more organized, and he understands what he shouldn't do. Of course, like in terms of like actual numbers, the amount of Trump appointed court officials have definitely increased, and he'll have basically at least six court officials that go to hell and back. Also for Congress, his Congress officials have definitely increased, and you'll have a lot less reins there. You won't have the court and Congress kind of like hold back from what he wants to do, basically. Though I do think, well, like these two these two leagues will be able to hold him back. I think his own like advisors might be able to calm him down a little bit, as even though he's basically trying to like fire career employees who are probably going to go against his ideas. I think he'll probably establish, or like I said before, like the chief of office thing. He'll give positions to able individuals who are competent enough to see that maybe a few things are too extreme for even Trump to do. So I think with the addition of like better people, basically, and more competent people, I think he'll still be extremely Trump and extremely extreme. But I think he'll make the correct decisions more than he'll make the bad decisions. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, I think what you said is like that's actually kind of just what the extra stuff I wanted to talk about was, right? It's like because I see a lot of the like doomsday people talking as if like, oh, every person that Trump is going to appoint is just going to be like a sheep or like a rock and just not have any opinions and just listen to him completely. And it makes me like I like Mark Cuban a lot. I'm a big basketball fan. I like the Mavs, but I remember seeing on the news back in the day, Marvin, or a couple months into the campaign or away from the election, Mark Cuban said something like, "Oh, Trump. only surrounds himself with like women who stupid or have no mind or something like that, right? And his most recent appointee, like the his campaign manager, who's now his chief of staff, is proves the exact opposite of that, right? Like she is even a lot of the people who are doomsday people have said that she's someone who can rein him in, and at the same time, she's definitely a smart, competent person. Because she helped beat Harris, and that wasn't an easy feat, and she helped win by a lot. And then everyone's been saying this year's campaign from Trump has been a lot more professional, and she definitely has had a big role. So I think it's kind of ignorant to just say that Trump's just going to surround himself with a bunch of yeah.
I believe the guardrails thing is very true. I believe that he'll have like much. I don't think power, especially like this case where we need the for especially for America where our economy was trending pretty down due to COVID. I think we need this type of leader to kind of lead us through this not difficult time, but somewhat turbulence time. And I think with this amount of power Trump has gained, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Uh, I think moving on, we should talk about like some of his policies, some of the things that he could implement due to him becoming president. I think the first thing to talk about, and the thing he's been kind of famous for, was his takes on immigration. Obviously, he's famous for the build the wall thing. I think that's very indicative of how he like views immigration. He of course wants to like, mass deportation of people back to Mexico. He believes that by doing this, there'll be more jobs, which is very much fair. He obviously is very hard on immigration, and one of the main points that he established against Harris was the fact that she wasn't as hard and she failed to basically help immigration or help like illegal immigration to America. And his like hard-nosed strategy, especially with the appointees that he's appointed, as like officials, are definitely gonna you know be gonna help him a lot for this type of thing. Immigration numbers have were extremely high in 2023 during Biden's campaign, and now that that was not accounting for like the people we haven't like counted yet, and in the like in 2024 the number has come down significantly. That could be a good indicator for Trump, I guess, and we can see what he goes from that. What do you think?
Yeah, so the whole immigration thing, I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings on immigration. Personally, for me, it wasn't like the big issue for during the election, because I'm not sure how I feel about like it as a problem. Like I fully understand that it's kind of gone a little bit overboard, with the amount of immigrants coming into the country, especially illegal immigrants. But at the same time, like there's, like I said, I have a ton of thoughts about the immigrants and it's very all mixed up and jumbled. But like, I think at the beginning, like, I think a core thing is like America is like a country of immigrants. And I think people don't bring that up at all during this conversation or especially during this election cycle. All right. Like everybody who lives in America, their ancestor was an immigrant from Europe and then from Africa and then from Asia. Right. But that point aside, like I just remember back in like 2016 when and stuff like that when immigration was also an issue then, but then it was like there was like ICE became a big deal then, and then they were a big deal because they had a lot of negative news about them where they were just separating people from their families and things like that, and then some of the news was reporting that maybe they were taking people who maybe didn't really deserve to be taken to leave to deported people who didn't really deserve to be deported and then deporting them and things. And all of that just seems pretty concerning. Maybe what Trump might do once he gets into office. I know he said that like during the campaign, like the Harris side always likes to quote what he said about, oh, I'm going to be a dictator on day one regarding the immigration crisis. And it's just very, I'm not sure what he's actually going to do. and I think he's held fast to the mass deportation thing, but I think it really needs to be done carefully. And, another factor is that, a lot immigrants or illegal immigrants actually play like a pretty important in the whole country. Like and this is like a big system problem that, we could have you could probably do an entire episode just on this, but it's with farms and stuff, right? Like a lot of farms in America employ only employ illegal immigrants because they're the only ones who accept wages that low. And, even without, and then once the illegals are gone, they don't want to employ the citizens because the citizens won't accept that low of a pay, but they don't want to pay people that much money to do that. And then I remember reading articles about I think crops in Texas or somewhere that just went rotten. And this is like tons, like hundreds of tons, or I don't know, just like some extreme amount of produce that just kind of went bad in the sun because there wasn't anybody to pay.
Yeah.
And then it also makes me think of the narrative of illegal immigrants all being criminals and things like that. And I feel like that's always been pretty extreme with Trump. And really, it's I don't think most of them aren't criminal. Most of them are just regular people wanting a better life in America. But I think just this immigration thing is just such a complicated topic. And, I'm really, really interested in seeing what Trump actually does. And I think it's just, there's no good solution to it. But yeah, just a lot of mixed feelings around this on the subject.
I think we know what Trump will I think we know what his idea is, what he wants to do. First he wants mass deportation. He said this constantly in 2016, 2020, 2024. He said for 12 years now. For 8 years now. The way he'll do it, of course, we're not exactly sure. But I think the main thing to look out for is he's consistent that he wants mass deportation. I don't think, and the amount of people he surrounds him with, the people who he surrounds himself with, are people who are known to have similar values as he does. Of this, I think you can expect mass deportation from him. I don't think this is a policy he'll try to go back on or try to mitigate, kind of calm everyone down on. I think this is something he'll stand on firmly, and I think that, especially with the newfound power he's probably given, this might be one of the first things that he might try. Whether it'll work or not, I'm not exactly sure. Like you said before, immigration is a very complicated and very complex problem that many people have tried to solve, and it's just not been working. I do think that if Trump fully focused on this, he could probably end it. I don't think for the better or the worse, I'm not sure, but I believe that if he spends a lot of resources, which he might not have, honestly, but if he does somehow figure out this problem, I think his intentions are to end this thing as quickly as possible, basically. And I think with that idea out of the way, I think that would help a lot of the border states of America and Mexico to maybe soften out the immigration and maybe focus on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Trump's going to try to put a quick stop to it, but who knows? It doesn't feel very realistic. You mentioned resources, and it would take a ton of like an ungodly amount of resources to actually pull this off, right? And he's been talking about that wall for so many years, and I'm pretty sure it's not entirely built yet. There's sections of the wall, but I don't think there's an actual wall yet, like the Great Wall of China or anything like that.
Fragments of idea, but
yeah. But I actually don't think he wants to put a stop to immigration completely. I think he wants it to be all legal, or I think a lot of people in the party just want all legal immigration.
Yeah, like you said before, everyone in America right now, almost everyone are immigrants from another place. Maybe the ancestors are, but they're immigrants of some kind. So it wouldn't be fair to say, oh, we should ban all immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to be honest here. I don't think that his idea of banning immigrants comes from him really believing that he can solve this problem within his 4 years, maybe 8 years. I don't know. It's Trump. Maybe he'll find a way to be elected in 2020 or something. But with his 4 years, I think he'll push his agenda of immigration and wants to be a good president. Yes, but like you said before, how realistic is? I believe he'll try his absolute best to fix this. I don't think it'll be very successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I guess we'll wait and see, right?
Next up, I think we should talk about his immunity. Um, so in 2016, of course, the first thing mentioned was 2016. The Supreme Court was moderately conservative. It was four Democratic leaning and the one kind of mixed. This year, it's 6-3, and that's extremely concerning, especially with a recent proposal where Trump basically said that any criminal activity he did in his presidency just does not count. And many people just found that hilarious, right? Like that obviously doesn't make sense. That makes logical sense. If you committed a crime, you committed a crime. Doesn't matter if you're president or not. That's how our Constitution was made. And yet, the sixth Supreme Court justices ruled in his favor. I don't know how good that is for democracy, how good that is for like the well-being or like how safe people feel, how safe people feel. But I think it's a very good indicator of how Trump. He
Mm-hmm.
has six. He has basically this like insurance and this like basically the shield basically where he can get away with basically anything, and especially with the people he surrounds himself with, he'll like have he won't have to worry about the legal or ethical dilemmas. He'll just go straight to the point, and that's very scary. This is basically like we said before. This is Trump without reins. Of course, you'll have like reins with like other people, but like this is Trump without legal or ethical reins, basically. And I think this could lead to a lot of change. I think.
I'm actually not too familiar, or I haven't been keeping up with Trump's court cases that much. And I know he has like and it definitely is concerning to hear that he's going to probably like make himself immune and stuff. But really, I'm not knowledge. I don't know much about it, about this stuff. Like I said, I haven't paid that much attention to his court cases, but it does. But one interesting point, or one fun thing that, or not so fun, but one thing that was interesting that I've heard some people say, and I don't know how true this is, but when people say talk about why Trump was doing so much stuff during his campaigning versus like Harris doing a little bit less relatively, like they refer to like, oh, if Trump doesn't win, he's going to be in jail for years. And, and I'm like, that's a good point. If it's either win or go to jail versus like win or, find some other position in government, like Harris has, one person who's definitely going to be a lot more motivated than the other. Right. Um, but yeah, overall, like morally and ethically concerning, but not too knowledgeable about it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit overblown, but we'll see what happens. This is all pure speculation. Next up, I think something we could talk about is Gaza. So, of course, Gaza situation has happened for multiple years. Especially under Biden administration, many people who aren't very happy with how he's handled it. I think he's handled it decently to the best of his ability. It's a very complex situation happening in Gaza where you can't really spend that many resources and you can't really spend that much like effort into this thing, but it's also very important. However, with Trump, I believe he will want complete control or at least give Gaza back to Israel. Like I'm not sure how much he's willing to sacrifice for it. But I think, especially with people he's hired and with people he's put into office, I think all of their goals are lined up with the fact that they want Gaza to be with Israel. They want to end this war completely. They want to make sure that Gaza never rises up again. They want to make sure that this thing is settled and won't be a problem for Israel. And I think that's like, I think myself, I'm not exactly sure with like global politics, especially in the Middle East area. But I believe that with this, I think, well, it's obviously a good thing that you want to settle this war as fast as possible. I'm not sure of the ways you'll probably finish this or accomplish this, but yeah, it'll be a sight to see, especially in seeing how he handles this position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be really interesting, like you said, to see how he. I honestly have no idea what he's going to what he's going to do in or with the Israel Gaza situation. Like you said, it's super complicated. Just taking the U.S. out of the equation completely, it's still super complicated. But yeah, I know a lot of people are calling for, just going by like, oh, the president is like an extension of like what the citizens want, right? And it's like even among the citizens, it's so split in terms
Yeah.
of what we want our government to do, right? It's some want like more support or full support for Israel. A lot of others want like to stop supporting Israel completely. And then there's also like the international stage with like I know a lot of the current things in regards to Gaza and the rules and the laws there in terms of like who the land belongs to and how the land is distributed were actually rules and laws like set by the UN, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, that's an organization that, is respected worldwide and, is normally people listen to them, right? But at the same time, it's like there's nothing really stop anybody or Trump or Israel or Gaza from just ignoring what the UN says and stuff like that, and it hasn't stopped them so far. But it'll be really interesting to see where.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, I think the Gaza situation is obviously going to be. We'll see what happens. Biden handled it. The way Biden handled it was very unpopular among a lot of people.
Yeah,
We'll
but
see what Trump.
I don't think there is like a popular way to handle it, right?
Yeah, true.
But I think, at the end of the day, if like if it get like if the war ends, regardless of how it ends, I think most people would be happy like
Yeah.
to like if like 2 months afterwards, like maybe immediately after it ends, a lot of people will be could be very unhappy with the conditions under which it ended, whether it's like Gaza gets its independence or whether or not it just goes completely into Israel or somewhere in the middle, right? Regardless of any of those decisions, like immediately there's going to be a lot of people upset. But I think a couple months afterwards, or maybe a couple weeks afterwards, people will be pretty happy that the war is over.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully we can try. Hopefully Trump can do what he can to put an end to the war. Yeah.
I think people just don't like dying.
Yeah.
Arguments. So I think we'll talk about the last thing that we like officially know about Trump, his position on abortion. Now I know that he's been saying that he's this protector of women's rights and he'll be the savior and he'll implement more women's rights. That's just not the case. I'm gonna be honest here. He surrounds himself with people who are complete against the idea, and I don't think Trump will be a benefit will help women's rights in general, especially with abortion. And I think with his executive power as president, right, there's not much he can really do to really like cut down on this right. Basically, one thing he can do is the Compact of 2018 of 1873. Basically, it's an act or it's a law that's passed that basically limits women's rights and banning any association with abortion. Personally, I don't believe that he'll do this simply on the fact that the amount of backlash you'll see from this, especially like the female community, would be absurd, and this would like lead to mass like hate spreading of Trump's name, basically. So I don't think he'll actually do this, but I think his position on like women's rights is important to understand. He will not the savior of women's rights that he claims to be. He surrounds with people who are completely against the idea. I don't think that he'll also be completely against this idea. I think it's very safe to say that he would help it.
Yeah. No, I think I honestly don't think Trump cares that much about women's rights personally. Like I don't think he like from his personal standpoint really has that much of a care about and his policies around it just kind of are based on like what will garner him the most support in his like party. Um like I know he's all like anytime it's like brought up, at least anytime I've seen it brought up with him, is he always just says, leave it to the states. And then he kind of just brushes it off after that. Which I think is just like hiding away from the question or just not engaging in it very much. It's just like this is not my problem and this shouldn't be my problem. Which is concerning. But you know, definitely not a great thing. But I think also it goes back to like Trump. A lot of people say Trump does what's best for Trump. And I think even a lot of people who voted for him might agree with that. But it's just like, I think in some of the people who voted for him's minds, it's just what's best for Trump might be good for me too, or better for me than what Biden gave us. Yeah, but definitely not a very bright, or definitely not a lot of light regards to that in regards to women's rights with Trump. But if women's rights becomes like, if supporting women and stuff like that becomes something that will be good for Trump, I'm sure he'll jump right on that and maybe even reestablish Roe v. Wade, or like or establish some type of legal abortion law. But we'll see if that situation ever arises, or that's at least what I think.
I think that one last thing I completely agree with you on the fact that I don't think Trump cares as much about this woman, right? The thing is, his party mates and the people he's appointed as with power, for example, JD Vance himself, they have a very negative outlook on women's rights, and like they might actually think of implementing this act. They might go further and like abolish abortion, basically. I don't know how realistic this is, but the fact that it's been reported in multiple outlets is very concerning.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Trump will maybe support that type of stuff if he thinks it's good for him. And if he thinks it's not good for him, he's not going to support it. And to be honest, I feel like 4 years from now, I don't think the situation will have changed much. I think it'll just be his leave it to the state situation. And 4 years from now, the states will have that law, all their laws in place by then regarding abortion. And then, that's just going to be the world we live in for like a decent bit of the future. No, I think that was a fun conversation. Even though some of the topics were heavy, but it was great to be able to hear an opinion about it and learn.
Yeah, it was a very, very fun conversation. Thank you for being here again.
Yeah, no problem.
That's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and yeah.
Alrighty.